Hello all, welcome to my YouTube channel. So in today's video we are going to discuss a very common issue which we generally face when we do a day-to-day deployment on Kubernetes. So the config map changes not reflecting in the running pods. So why it happened, how we can resolve this. So let's understand what all the regions and how we can resolve this. So before going into the regions and resolutions, let's understand what is config map. So basically ConfigMap is a way to store configuration data separately from your application code. So it basically helps your code to keep clean. So now like it could be your connection details, your URLs, all those values basically you are going to store as a config map in Kubernetes. So now let's understand what all the regions. So whenever you update a config map, existing pod do not automatically pick up the new values unless they are restarted. So the very first reason you have updated a config map and you have not restarted your pod, then the changes, whatever the changes you have made, that will not reflect in your application or in your pod. So the very first reason you should the pod which is running is not restarted, so you have to restart the pod. For that basically you have to manually go and restart the pod and update the config map values. Second reason, config map not mounted correctly. Config map is not properly mounted as a volume or environment variables. In that time also you can face this particular issue. So if you are using environment variables, you have to define them correctly, or if you are using volumes, you have to check the mounted volumes are correct or not. So in this screenshot, basically I have updated two screenshots here. So if you can see the very first screenshot, if you are using environment variables, then you have to verify these particular values, these are correct or not. And if you are using volume mounts, then you have to verify these particular values. So like obviously these values will be changed based on your configurations. So these are the two places where you have to check these are correct or not. So this could be your second reason and resolution for the config map is not updating in your current running pods. Third reason could be config map changes are not reflected in mounted volumes. So that's we already discussed in previous slides. So basically the Kubernetes only update the volumes whenever your pod is restarted. So you have to restart your pod, then only the new changes, whatever you have modified or you have make in your config map, that will update it. Fourth reason could be a deployment does not detect config map changes. So basically Kubernetes does not track config map changes for deployments. So for that basically what you can do, you can add a checksum annotation to forcefully update the config map changes. So for that basically you can see this particular data here. So you can see a checksum / config. So that basically here you are going to forcefully update the config maps for your deployment. So this is also you can do to resolve this particular issue. Now we will talk about the best practices for config map updates. So use kubectl rollout restart to refresh pod whenever a config map is modified or updated. Automate pod restart in CI/CD pipeline whenever a config map changes happen. Third, you can do checksum annotation you can use. Fourth, you have to monitor the log for any errors related to missing or incorrect config map values. So that's how basically you can rectify the config map issue. So that's all for today. See you next video. Thank you so much.